I'm Kiera Morgan. Thanks for joining me for Coffee with Kiera, sponsored by the Human Being in Newport and Lincoln City. And we're excited today to be with Sheriff Landers. Hi.
Good morning. Good morning.
It's really great to have you on the program. It's been a while, and since we've had a chance to do an interview, and I'm happy to have that opportunity again. So first of all, tell folks a little bit about what the Sheriff's Office does.
Okay, well, a little bit about the Sheriff's Office. We actually provide law enforcement coverage for our patrol deputies for the unincorporated areas outside of Lincoln City, Newport, and Toledo. So as far as the patrol side, that's probably, I think, what a lot of people recognize our Sheriff's Office for is patrol deputies, but we actually do a lot more than that. But that does cover, we actually serve about 26,000 population in the county, not counting all the tourists and visitors that come every weekend. Now it's not just a tourist season, it's every time. And then, but we run the county jail, which, we house 161 inmates is what our capacity is, and we're full most of the time. And so we house all the inmates for the county here. And we also oversee emergency management, and we have our support services that provides all our civil records, all that stuff behind the scenes, all the work that goes into all that stuff to make the deputy's job easier, and all that things that people do come in for their concealed handgun license. If they need to register as a sex offender, they come in for that. They need to get their fingerprints taken. They do tons of stuff that they probably don't get recognized as much as they should, because they do a lot. They are constantly busy. So.
Well, and you also, are you still overseeing the vacation rentals?
Vacation rentals is another one that they do, and yes, we still do that for kind of the enforcing and regulating side of that, and we do that. And then kind of unique for us is we have the animal shelter. It's under the Sheriff's Office too, and which is basically supported by taxpayer dollars. 11 cents a thousand on assessed value pays for the animal shelter operations and also for the animal services deputies that serve the entire county. And of course, everybody knows the animal shelter right now is kind of going through a little, it's
being revamped.
It's revamped. It's there's not even a shelter there right now. It's a trailer, and but they're doing a great job. Laura and her staff are up to the challenge, and they know that the future is bright for getting a new animal shelter. And I'm hearing any day now there should be a new manufactured home in there for a temporary location, and temporary animal shelters coming in, so that will be up to almost full operation as we were before the mold problem happened, and so that will keep us going for a year to 2 years. I'm hoping that 18 months is where we're looking at as far as getting into a new animal shelter, and we have a committee with Commissioner Jacobson and others that are actively looking for a new spot to build that animal shelter. And maybe since we're on that topic, I'll touch a little bit about that. That a lot of people have asked me, why don't you just build in the same location?
That question has come up.
Yes, a lot. And it seems that would be really simple. The county owns the property. Just tear down.
Been there.
It's been there since 50s or 60s when the shelter first started. And it's a really good question, because that's where I was like, let's just build there. But it doesn't really fall in place nicely with the county commons plan. And they're starting next spring, they're looking at really starting to tear down buildings there and build new buildings for exhibit halls and conference centers and everything else that they're wanting to put in that commons plan. And while there could be space there that we build a shelter, it wouldn't build it as nice as we want, I guess, or as adequate as we want to serve the citizens for years to come. We want something that's going to be 50 years.
It doesn't fit the profile with
Right,
the commons.
yeah, exactly. So, this is really an opportunity to look for a new location and get the space that we really need. We're looking for at least 1, but 2 acres would be nice, so we have that green space for the animals. They're actually looking, part of the business plan may, if we have enough space, look at doing kind of a separate wing for people to board their dogs. So kind of that.
That'd be great, because it would generate some funding.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And even if it doesn't pay for more operations, it would help us do more programs, maybe more staff, and we could just do a lot more. So that's not a given, but really look at the space. But that's an option, because you know, there are a few kennels around here, but really not enough to support the Newport area. And so we might look at doing something like that, which would be a unique partnership to have with that also.
That would be great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the other things that are going on. You mentioned that, of course, the Sheriff's Office runs the jail. And one of the things that you've been instrumental in, and I applaud you for, and many do, and that is your programs to work to try to rehabilitate or keep citizens from reoffending and getting back in the jail, taking away that revolving door.
Right.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that when I became sheriff, June of 2016, hard to believe it's been over 3 years now, and
I still oops once in a while to call lieutenant.
Yeah.
I will admit that.
Yeah,
There's a thing.
it's amazing how time goes by, and I've enjoyed the job more than I thought I would. I knew it was good, be a good job, and being with the sheriff's office for over 32 years, obviously had a chance to watch other sheriffs. Sheriff Dotson was here probably the longest since when I was here, and I was directly under him. But yeah, one of the things when I first started, the jail was full. The jail was constantly full, and I needed to better manage the population. One of the things to really look at is our population with mental illness. And at any given time, it fluctuates, but at any given time, 30% of our inmate population has some sort of mental illness. And that's not even considering the alcohol or drug addiction, any addictions. And a lot of them are co-occurring disorders that we are seeing. 10% of that 30% has severe mental illness. And, so you look at that population like, is this really the right place for them? And shortly after I became sheriff, Commissioner Hall approached me, and she talked about Stepping Up initiative, which honestly I didn't know anything about it at the time. But I got educated on it, learned about it, and what the Stepping Up initiative is, it's a national effort to reduce the number of individuals with mental illness in our jails and prisons. As soon as she said that, I'm like, sign me up.
I'm on.
And she kind of makes a comment, it's like, you had me at hello type thing, yeah. And that was so true, and if there was a national effort that we could do. Now, each county that has signed up, which I think there are 505 nationwide, at last count that you can go up and look at the website, but the last count was like 505. Malheur County in Oregon was actually 500 county that signed up, so one right here in Oregon. But it really is, what just signing up is just your county adopting a resolution that you are a Stepping Up county. What you do with it after that is really up to the county. And we've done a lot. And, it's, Steve Sparks, I got to give a shout out to him. He's been instrumental in this. He still is a contract employee for us that Commissioner Hall and I, she actually knew him from before and in other areas and talked to me about that. And basically, we split the cost of having him come in, and while we probably could have done similar work, he was really the one that reached out and established a lot of relationships, a lot of things we didn't have. He had the time to do it, to devote to this, and it's been money well spent to see where we are today. It included our first sequential intercept map, which was done in 2017, and what that is, we call it SIM for short. That's the acronym. But what it is basically it's in both of the SIMs that we have done, because we just recently completed one, we were able to get funded. This last one, Gobi did it, which is Greater Health Organization. Greater Health. I'm not going to get that one.
That's okay. I can't help you because I don't know that one.
Anyhow, Gobi. You can look at Gobi, and everyone knows them by Gobi, but it's basically a kind of they're public, but they're private, and they are funded. A lot of Eastern Oregon counties use them for their HHS department, Health and Human Services department. But they came in and did our last one, and then we actually had the Gaines Center come in and did the first one. So at no cost to us, we were able to get this done. But they basically bring everybody that could be connected in this effort. The hospitals, the behavioral health department, law enforcement, the district attorney, community corrections, and then there's like Samaritan House and Reconnections and all these groups that come in that have a little part in what we're trying to do, but where basically everybody was doing it in silos. So we brought everybody together to like really prioritize what we need to do and what we need to accomplish. And it was really good. So what they do is they basically give you a roadmap, just like it's called sequential intercept mapping. They give you a roadmap, they prioritize what you should be doing, And it's really based on the intercepts, which are 0 through 5, where someone leaves the community and enters the criminal justice system. Usually come in at 0, that's that call to dispatch, something's going on. Law enforcement responds, takes appropriate action, they get arraigned, they go to court, they either, guilty or not guilty, serve their sentence, go to community corrections, and then after 5, they're back out in the community again. And it's really trying to divert these individuals as early as possible to get them on the right track. So when they do come back out at the end and back out in the community, they have more tools and better knowledge to not reoffend. Again, just like you talked about with that revolving door, exactly what we want to stop. Because like I talked about the 161 beds here, we could look at building a bigger jail to house more people, but jails cost a lot of money to run, and it's not really the right thing to do because we're not really making people better, we're just warehousing people. And in the 90s, that was kind of the way to do things. The state themselves built prisons. This building was built in 92, and what was really needed, because we have a 26-bed jail, small jail in the courthouse, at the time they were just building to get more numbers, and the state was building more, but really we ended up just warehousing people. The state hospitals closed, number of beds, and so what happened is those people that were going to state hospitals back then, now we're sitting in jails more, so they're sitting here. And there's actually more people in jails than there are in psychiatric hospitals.
Wow.
And that's,
And these are folks with mental illness.
Yes.
Or drug addiction.
Co-occurring something, yes, absolutely. Some type of disorder that they were here. And so, we need to make people better. That's what we're supposed to be doing, not just punishing and warehousing people. And so that's, one of the things we're trying to do, but there's a number of things early on. That first sequential intercept mapping identified that pretrial justice was one of the things we didn't work on. And what that is really bail reform had started. It was a national effort to do bail reform because what they were seeing is that people, you could say suspect A and suspect B were getting arrested for the exact same crime. It may be a low-level drug offense or something. They get brought into jail and they each get put a bail on them. Well, suspect A may be able to afford bail and can pay, and he's back out. Suspect B might not be. When actually suspect A could be a higher risk to the community for reoffending or causing further harm or not showing up for court than suspect B. But because we were based on a bail situation, it was a matter of whether or not somebody could post that bail or not, and the other one. So we really looked at that. Is that really what we're trying to do, or really we're trying to make sure that the people we're releasing are not going to reoffend and are going to show up for court and are able to succeed in society? They may have made a mistake, but when they're pretrial, we shouldn't be punishing them by keeping them in jail. That's for judges and once they're convicted. But what we're finding is judges were using that as punishment. They're keeping them in jail, and so they put high bails on them so that they knew they would stay there, even if they not looking at risk assessments. So what we did is we went to the budget committee and knowing that was one of our priorities, and we have now 2 pretrial release specialists that probably would be great to have on a show like this and to talk about what they actually do. But I can tell you in a nutshell, everyone that comes into jail, they talk to the next business day. They go through and they analyze them based on a bunch of questions that they ask, and they really determine their risk. So then they go to arraignment with them and they say, this person I would recommend release to the judge, and with this stipulations, and the judge can still say yes or no. But then if they say yes and they're released back out, there could be certain monitoring conditions. They could wear an ankle bracelet. They could have an alcohol monitor.
Release to a family member.
Could release a family member. Make sure you have a job. These type of things, and so it's working out really well. At any given time, they are managing 400, 500 people on their caseload, basically. So, it sounds like a lot for 2 people, but some of the people can call in. Some people get the robocalls saying different things. You need to show up for court. Which it was something to just see something simple as putting in robocalls to where we're reminding people to show up for court, how successful that has been.
Really?
Yeah, I guess it's like the dentist. My dentist calls me and says, your next appointment is in a week, your next appointment is 3 days.
Text message.
Yeah, so you're more likely to show up for the dentist appointment. And same thing is happening. The people are like, oh, they really are watching me, and I need to show up for court, and that has reduced our fail to appear rate. Last year, before we had pretrial, we were basically, the baseline for the whole year was 20% of people that were released were not showing up for court. 1 out of 5. This year, we have not had a single month that's been over 20, and some months have been down to 10%. So
Wow, that's great.
yeah. So right there, we almost cut it in half, and we're working with the judges and identifying further trends to make that even lower.
So is this setting an example for the rest of the state as well?
Yes, every county in the state's doing it a little bit differently. I believe at last count there are 7 pretrial, 8 pretrial justice programs going on around the state, and so they actually started meeting on the state level to kind of, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? It's still adapted for each county. One of the things that we're doing in Lincoln County that is different than any other counties, we actually have a pretrial release house where we have a duplex that's just a block away from the jail and has 9 beds in it. And we have peer counselors that are on site there that we actually got through a Bureau of Justice Assistance grant, and which also helped us hire another inmate counselor to work with the pretrial group. But these individuals are down at the house if their only barrier is a place to stay, for whatever reason, whether they're homeless or they were involved in a domestic situation, they can't go back home, whatever it is, if that's the only barrier that the judge was keeping them in jail, then now we have a house that we can allow them to go to and stay there, and they can continue working, which is the whole goal, is to get people, and they start programming as early as possible. I think that's the key, start programming as early as possible. Again, looking at that map, diverting individuals, we were pretty good on the end when they came out, especially now that that community corrections has their transitional housing. But that's what kind of got our idea, like, why are we waiting till they get all the way through? Why don't we start them at the earliest possible chance and get them in programs? So when they go back for the judge for sentencing, the judge is looking at them going, wow, you're underway. Let's just continue what we've been doing, instead of maybe looking at putting them back in jail.
So there's still a punishment per se for, they're still being held accountable for what they've done, but learning new ways so that they won't do it again.
Absolutely. I think that's the whole goal. Obviously, these individuals have made a mistake. They've committed a crime. They may have, stolen from somebody, vandalized something. Family member could be, and so that's one of the questions come up, because people are saying, well, you're just soft on crime, and that's when I say, no, we're being smart on crime.
Sorry, I have to laugh at that because being proactive doesn't mean that you're soft.
No, we're not overlooking things. We're actually just better addressing them, again, so that when they're all through with it, the goal is that they don't come back. And what we're doing before, we were thinking we were punishing them by putting them in jail. They're serving however long sentence that was. What we're doing is we're just creating more individuals.
Yeah, then they just get out and there's no change. They've been punished.
Right.
But they go back out and have no idea of that behavior to not get punished again.
It's been worse too, because statistics are showing that for every day someone spends in jail, especially if it's their first or second arrest, it's a low-level offense, and they're maybe in their 20s, what they're saying, at day 4, their likelihood of reoffending when they get out of jail is up to 50%.
Wow.
So we're like, okay, we're creating our own problem then. If we need more jail beds, we're creating them, because that's why we're maxed out on our jail beds. Because we just were putting people in, and a lot of people are like, well, why is that, And there's a couple of theories that I think. Number one, jail's not a deterrent anymore, especially with individuals with mental illness or drug addiction.
It's become housing for them.
Exactly. It's not.
What is it? Three hots and a cot.
Yeah.
That was the saying of, well, at least I'm not on the street.
Right. And it's individuals are, coming here, and if they had a job, they're going to lose it. If they had family support, every day they're here, that diminishes. And they also then get around a hardened group of individuals that have been here, that have served a lifetime in jail, that have never gotten better, that is just a revolving door. So when they go back out, that's all they know. And instead of, well, let's keep this person's job, let's keep the family support, But let's get them into programming to look at whatever barrier that is, if it's drug or alcohol, because again, it's not a deterrent. Somebody with mental illness, they don't think about, well, I don't want to go to jail, so I'm not going to do X, Y, Z. They just do X, Y, Z and then get in jail. They serve a short period of time, then they go back out, same thing, it's just never ending. Someone with a drug addiction, that drug addiction is so severe now when you're talking about with the opioid addiction, heroin, all that other stuff. It's so addicting to these individuals that that's all they want to do when they're out. Whatever it takes to get the drug. So we need to get them off the drugs, however we can in here, and offer as much program as we can. But again, try to get that started as early as possible.
And you do offer a lot of programs in the jail for those who are in jail. You offer a lot of programs to those folks, including work programs and things like that. Can you share about that?
Sure, yeah. We offer work programs, and when individuals, if they're eligible to work, we get them in the kitchens. They're in their food handlers cards, so they can go back out. They get recommendations for how well that they worked when they're in here. I mean, people, when they're going to another restaurant, call us, well, how obviously the person was dependable because they're always here. But there are other things like how well they work with others, that really.
How do they perform the job?
How they perform, and they learn that, and so when they go out, we have a lot of restaurants and other places in that industry that are hiring, and again, trying to get people the jobs. There's other things we do. We allow them to go out with community corrections on work release programs. So that's the work part of it. But we also have like breaking barriers. We have where it's a week-long intensive program where individuals come in, and it was designed for people with addiction. But I've sat through some of the classes, and I mean, I can relate firsthand too. Anyone can. It really is whatever that is. We all have barriers, and we all need to work through those. And that breaking barriers is the whole time. And it's interesting to watch an individual that starts out on day one, Monday, when they graduate on Friday too. They really change. At first I was kind of like, I worked the road a long time. I was like, yeah, come on, but it's true. And some of those inmates are just going there because they know it's more time out of their cell. But once they get there, and you kind of see a change at day 3, Wednesday, and then by the time I try to attend all the graduations and listen to them talk. And they're so sincere. Each one of them gets up and says something about what they learned during graduation, and you're so sincere. You're like, oh, please, when you leave, just take that with you. Don't go back to those same influences that got you here, and you're going to be successful. You know that they have it. They have it, and a lot of people are successful. The other thing we need to realize sometimes, because they went through breaking barriers once, they got out. Maybe they made a mistake. Addiction's so strong, and they're back in here. And they want to take it again, and for a while there we were like, no, you did it once, you had your chance. But now it's like, no, sometimes it takes a couple times to sink in. A doctor at a conference was trying to describe that addiction, how strong it is. And they looked at the audience and they were like, well, if you ever tried dieting, or if there's ever a food that was bad for you that you needed to try to avoid, but you really liked it was like your best food. Me, it's like French fries or potato chips or something.
Chocolate.
Some people it's chocolate. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and think of that addiction and then multiply it by 100 times. And that's what these people are going through. And I mean, we look at that and that kind of put it in a little more perspective.
Well, and it's been found, it's kind of like with domestic violence. It takes sometimes up to 7 tries for people to try to break free. And there's safety concerns and all kinds of different things that folks are going through. And they're going back to a life that may not be ideal.
Yeah. And
that's difficult to make those changes.
Yeah. So in our last sequential intercept mapping that we just did a month ago, we actually haven't even received our final report or map. Some of the things that we identified moving into the future is looking at more diversion programs. LEAD is one of the ones that they call. It's a law enforcement assisted diversion, and it's really now going back even before the arrest. A deputy or officer contacts somebody, maybe a shoplifter that's at one of the stores in town, and maybe you can tell the person's has a substance use disorder of some type. They can give them a choice. It's like, I can take you to jail now, or we can get you immediately into some type of program. And usually at that point, they're looking at, jail or immediately. And what immediately means is I'm going to transfer you to another location where you're going to start that now. It's not like tomorrow you got to come back.
Right.
They're going to choose that. And so they made the first step consciously to get better. And then we want to have in place, either peer support counselors or something. We're going to work with our new inmate counselor that's starting. We're going to work with Chance, who offers peer counselors in the community, and getting that person signed up right away. And if that happens, the rest will never happen. They go through the program. And so now they're not even coming here, but they're still getting the help. Now again, that looks like we're avoiding what the charge was, but again, this is, we're talking about people that have several cycles on their arrest record. If we just continue doing what we're doing, they're going to be right back to wherever they were, shoplifting again, or doing substance abuse again, using drugs.
And often it's the substance abuse that leads to
Absolutely.
theft,
Yeah.
burglary, shoplifting, that situation.
A lot of people, we give jail tours here. We go through the jail. And a lot of people, go through and it's like, oh, that's not what I thought. They're thinking of the people that are in crisis at the time coming to jail, but once they're here, they get cleaned up. I remember a tour going through and I was just talking to them, just normally, we're just chatting with the inmates, and they're just like, you're talking to them like they're normal people. Well, they are. They are normal people. And when they're off the drugs, when, if they have mental illness, when they're getting treatment for that, they're just like everybody. And that's what we want them to be when they're out in the community. We want them to be, getting jobs, supporting their families, being productive. That's what the goal is.
And that's what's great about the jail here is that you have Dennis Buckmaster, who's phenomenal. And he works with the inmates that have the mental illness and works to get them on a medication that's going to be right for them. There's tons of medication out there for all these different symptoms, but not everyone is right for every individual.
Yeah, and then working on a plan when they get out to continue that treatment too.
Because if it's too strong, if it makes them feel too, leveled out or zombied out, they're not going to continue to take it.
Absolutely. And that's why part of this grant is getting a second inmate counselor, which is going to be so valuable for what Dennis is trying to do and working with inmates and addressing this population. So that's something we're working on. We have the inmate counselor, but the pretrial. The other thing is, or the pre-arrest, the other thing that we're going to do, a mobile crisis. And we got some things in the hopper for that we're trying to have a mobile crisis team where a deputy and a clinician will pair up, and they'll respond to individuals that are in crisis. They'll have the training, and you'll have a clinician right there with you. Again, trying to avoid an arrest being made. Because a lot of times what happens is these individuals get arrested because there's really nothing else we can do at the time.
Right.
And we know they'll be safe here and they won't cause any more havoc in the community. When really, if we can get things stabilized, maybe wherever that's at, we don't have to make that arrest. We don't have to come to the emergency department. So
it also kind of takes away, I would think, it would take away some of that fear of law enforcement by mentally ill folks, because they've encountered law enforcement before for doing what they deem as not doing any harm, just hanging out somewhere or trying to talk to someone, or and then they may have had negative encounters with law enforcement, so immediately seeing law enforcement creates that fear, and then there's issues there, right? So this will kind of help to take care of that.
Yep, having them right with you, not have to wait, will reduce those crisis situations. But that's not all we want to do with that team if we can get it established. The other thing is really, why wait till they get in crisis? Why not try to get to them beforehand? Strategically, we would look at, maybe going through the call load from the night before, and while something didn't rise to a crisis level, it may be an individual just pacing up and down the street. Now that could be normal, somebody could be just blowing off steam, it could be anything, but it could be somebody leading up to a crisis situation. This team would go out, talk to them, if everything's fine, they leave. If there's something else, then they can start setting a plan in place to avoid that crisis happening to begin with. And we know when that crisis happens, that's when people get hurt, that's when drastic measures have to happen, And we don't want it to get that way, and we would like to divert it before it ever happens. So another measure that we're trying to do, and again, these are a couple of priorities we have for the upcoming years, and so look forward to more on that, I guess, would be the best way to put it.
And you're working closely with the other law enforcement agencies throughout Lincoln County, Oregon State Police, Toledo, Newport, and Lincoln City Police on some of these measures
we work
as well?
great. Our partners with the other law enforcement agencies in the county are great. We couldn't do it without them. We're a county that works so well, and with our major crimes team, our major crash team, everything else that we do, we work in partnership with them. And while the jail is under the sheriff here, and there's no other municipal jails, everyone brings their custodies here. We need to work with them closely to not just throw out these programs. So every month we talk a little bit about it. We meet with the other chiefs and lieutenant from the state police and talk about what we're doing here, and kind of really don't just kind of spring it on them, because this is really a culture change for everyone. Again, like I talked about, I mean, I worked the road for several years. I worked the road in the 90s. I worked in the old jail. I used to have the thought that you do the crime, you do the time. I mean, but it's not that way anymore, unless we want to just build larger jails. But again, that's not solving the problem. And so talking about it with our deputies and talking about with the other law enforcement administrators, so that we can really get buy-in from the people out there doing it, because it is a culture change. It's again, I like to talk about it with the public too, because it's culture change for them. It would be somebody comes and does something, and if we get lead up and running successfully, that they're going to be like, well, you're not arresting them? Why aren't you arresting them? They did this to me. And while there need to be some accountability to that, again, the whole goal is to prevent it from happening again or to somebody else. And so, that's why we need to get the community involved too. So it's a huge culture change, and having the other law enforcement partners is key to that too. Yeah.
And you also have the canines. We're going to switch gears a little bit. And the canines are really important in preventing crimes as well, right?
Well, yeah.
I mean, when the community knows, they have a law enforcement dog, do they kind of maybe...
I think if somebody knows that, they're probably not going to be, if they did do something wrong, they're not going to run from us, so they're not apt to, try to get themselves hurt or us hurt. I think they give up more freely, and maybe it's probably the best thing to do. And but it's also kind of a prevention, because we're able to easily track them too, so that if we don't find them, they're not going to commit further crimes either.
Right.
So we get to them earlier on, so that they aren't out committing further crimes. So that would be, a deterrent, because there was times before we had the canines where somebody would run, hide in the brush, we didn't find them, we leave, and then usually another crime comes up before we find them. And so it is a prevention thing, because we were able to catch them safely.
I know some of the press releases I've seen, as soon as you announce we have Bonnie.
Bonnie and Nick.
Okay. I give.
That's it. That's the majority of it at that point. Once they hear the barking, and they usually come out, there's only been a couple of actual bites that we've had to do, but several captures. I can't remember what the numbers, but we're up to several captures. But that didn't result in a bite. They just, the dog was there, they came out, and nobody got hurt.
Enough said.
Yep.
Well, and it's great because you have the 2 dogs, Newport has 2 dogs, and now Lincoln City is working very hard on getting their first dog, which will be really helpful for having one in North County.
Absolutely.
Because right now the dogs are, kind of spread out, even though, Newport primarily focuses on Newport, but they're available for you guys if you need them in Toledo or Siletz or elsewhere, right?
Well, we have different dogs too, different functions of the dogs, and I think that's where, again, that partnership with other law enforcement, Newport kind of went down to the narcotics detention dogs. So they're the drug sniffers, they're sniffing the cars, they're sniffing people, not really the apprehension type or the patrol dog. And we have 2 patrol dogs. So again, we work well. If somebody needs something in the city, they come out to the county and use their dog for checking cars. And then Lincoln City's actually going to get a apprehension dog. So again, that North County area will be very well, and just having more than, when we first just had Bonnie, we had 1 apprehension dog, and we realize there's a lot more work in the county. Unfortunately, more work in the county that 1 dog can do, and So now
Well,
having
having
us,
one, yeah, in North County would be a
Yes.
huge help, because right now, if, Bonnie or Nix is, in South County or,
Yeah.
somewhere else, and by the time they got up to where the dog was needed, that person could be.
yeah, if you don't get a good
Potentially
perimeter
long
around the
gone.
scene, yeah, exactly. So having them on site as quickly as possible definitely helps their techniques for sniffing people out. And, it's just so, now we can spread out. We, try, besides vacation training and other things that go on, we try to spread out, at least have a dog on 7 days a week, and then adding Lincoln City will really add to that. Plus, the benefit of having training locally too, because they have to train every week. So they train 4 hours every week is what's required. And so right now, especially with just Bonnie, we had to send Bonnie and Handler over to Corvallis or in the valley somewhere to do that training. Once in a while they would come here, but the majority of the dogs are out in the valley, and you do it as a group. But when we get 3 here, we'll be able to provide our own training right here. So that saves time having to drive over every week for that. So that makes more sense to avoid just 4 hours and then driving time. That whole team is gone for quite a while.
Yeah,
And,
that's at least over half a day
yeah.
gone.
Right. And we'll be able to do it locally. And speaking of the dogs, something's coming out next summer. We don't have dates, but just keep everybody aware. We're going to do basically a canine agility course here. We're going to bring canines for over. We're not sure the exact location. I think we may be looking at Toledo, but it'd be a competition where the canines can come in and show but people just love it. Washington County does it now, and we actually participated at Springfield with Nix, and Nix did very well, and we're like, let's bring it locally here and let people really see the animals. They're amazing creatures, and they do such great work. Their handlers do great work. The dogs are really just doing what the handlers tell it. It's all fun to them. And
It is.
yeah.
They are so sweet. I got a chance to see Nix not too long ago, and just
They're not mean dogs at all,
sweetest baby
no.
in the whole
Yeah.
world. I was loving on her, giving her pets, and he was finally going, okay.
Yeah.
I love the dogs.
It's
so
so
much.
great. They go to schools, they go with the kids,
Right.
and they're just like any other pet at the time.
And
not
they're
pets, but-
so mellow.
Yeah.
Quick story, my little granddaughter, she was 3 at the time, and she was a little nervous around bigger dogs. She has a big dog, but she was a little nervous around other big dogs. Understandably, she was 3, and the dog's as big as she is. And we went and did an interview with Newport Police, and we saw the dog there. And at first she was like, and she kind of backed up, and the handler bent down, and he showed her, it's okay. And the dog just sat and was just completely mellow,
Yeah.
and allowed her to come up on her own. And then it was doggy.
Yeah, very mellow. I mean, when they're working, they're just playing. I mean, that's, even if they have to bite somebody and pull them out, whatever it is they're doing, it really is playing. That's how they're trained. That's how, they're not trained to be mean. And
No.
I think that's important to realize that they're just out having fun to them. And but they provide a vital role of what we're trying to do here. They're so beneficial.
We greatly appreciate our canines
Yes.
throughout Lincoln County. All right, Sheriff Landers, anything else that you want to add?
Well, I could go on, but I know our time is short, and no, it's been great.
Just means we'll have to get together again in the near
Absolutely.
future.
I'll do it anytime, so absolutely. This has been great. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again for joining us for Coffee with Kiera with my wonderful guest, Sheriff Landers. And we are sponsored by The Human Being in Newport at 6th Street and Highway 101, and in Lincoln City at the north end of town on the west side by TLC Credit Union. For Pacific Northwest News and Entertainment, I'm Kiera Morgan.